Hello, so I decided to make another video where I kind of talk about how many books I can read in 24 hours. This is from the moment I wake up till the moment I go to sleep. It's part of the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do 2.0, so the second version. And yeah, it was pretty successful in my opinion, but talk about a couple books. Most of them I was finishing and I was in the middle of, so I got through quite a few books. I also wanted to add that my dad had asked me why I record using my wired AirPods, earphone, microphone instead of like just talking to the mic or into the phone like a normal person. And I was like, I actually don't really know. But that's such a good point. And so throughout the video I have only a little bit of the clip where I use the microphone from the earbuds or whatever you want to call them, and you can tell when I'm not using that microphone that it sounds a little bit different and it kind of blasts a little, so I do apologize in advance because I guess now I know why it does sound better with a microphone or the voiceovers, which I didn't know before, so there's kind of a little bit of experimental. Either way, sorry it sounds kind of funky, but I didn't really know and I wanted to try it out, so hope you enjoy. And yeah, hi fam, starting the day bright and early at 10:36. We're reading the same book I've been reading for the past couple weeks, except I have only a little bit left, so let's do it. Paladin's Grace is a novel about a paladin who serves a god that's dead and a girl that fall in love. They just happen to meet, and it's really just about that. Honestly, I'm reading this for another video that I'm trying to film, but low-key that video is really slow in making, so this will probably be up before then. So I'll keep it short when I say that I didn't really enjoy it as much as I thought I would, because I feel like the summary for this book was not what I was expecting. So I was expecting something else, and instead I got like a romance, which is fine, but I thought it was gonna be exploring different themes, different topics. So yeah, I didn't really enjoy it as much as I wish I did, simply because the summary wasn't what I thought I was reading. So I just finished the book. I took 9.7 hours to read it, with an 8-minute average reading session and 1.6 average pages per minute. I think I'm gonna give it like a 2.5, maybe 3 stars. I feel like it was a very average book, and it wasn't necessarily my favorite, so I think I might go with 2.5 bumped down to 2. It was just like whatever. You know, I think I liked it, but I didn't love it. No, 2 high. I guess that means I didn't like it. Okay, I'll give it 3 stars because it was okay. Okay, on to the next book. So I took out the trash and made my bed and started putting in the laundry for later today. So now I have some more time to read. It looks like it's going to rain. Like, it's a very cloudy day. Well, the weather says it's gonna rain, but it doesn't really, to me, it doesn't really look like it's gonna rain. It just looks really cloudy, but it probably will. Here is my beautiful stack of books that I could read. It looks a little big, but that's besides the point. I could start out with like a really short book, but I will say that some of these are in Spanish because I'm hoping to do, for like the personal reading challenge, I want to read, at least within the HRCYED, I want to read 10 books in Spanish. Doesn't really matter like what, you know, book it is, but this one looks like the smallest one, but I also have one that's like short stories that I could also read. Then a couple other from Gabriel Garcia Marquez. This is a graphic novel, and I got this from like the just new releases section of my library, so I need to find a book for my new release to complete that before the month is over. I have this After the Quake, which I'm really excited to read. I don't know much about Japan, so it's always fun to read a little bit about a country you don't know about. Jasmine, this is a book that a friend recommended me in high school, so that's like a long time ago, and I was just like thinking about it. Oh, I might as well try to give it a shot. Then I have Junji Ito. I read one of his books once, and It was pretty good. It scared me, but it's really good. Uncanny, that is literally the definition of the work that I read. I don't even remember what book it was. It was like crazy though. And then I have Cukoo, which seems interesting, but I don't know. And then She's a Lamb. I don't really think I'll be getting to this book like at all, because I checked it out like a really long time ago and then I just never got around to reading it, and it's gonna be due pretty soon, so I don't think I'll have time to finish it in that time frame. So I'll let you know what book I end up reading. Okay, so the next book I decided to read is Biografía del Silencio, or Biography of the Silence, by Pablo de Oros? I don't really know. I don't know much about it. I just know that it looks really short. It's kind of cute. It's like, compared to like a normal book, I would consider this as like a normal sized book. Look how tiny it is. Kobo Plus says it'll take me 1 to 2 hours to read. I'm gonna give it like 2 to 3 because I assume that I would be a really slow Spanish reader if I want to understand and comprehend what's going on. So we'll see. It's like an essay, so that's why it's so short. But we'll see what it's about. So Biografía del Silencio is a non-fiction about meditation that kind of is a lot of self-exploration of the author himself, which is a Catholic Spanish priest, which I thought was really interesting. And I love how he talks about how long it took him to explore meditation and coming to needing it and loving it, and how it wasn't easy, that it wasn't something that just kind of came naturally to him. At first it was hard, it was uncomfortable. He noticed everything about what hurt. I was just sitting down, he noticed his back hurt, his knees hurt, his shoulder was hurting, everything. And once one thing stopped hurting, another new thing would start hurting. I thought that was really interesting. But he came to terms with the fact that you can't really fix everything, and it doesn't always have to go that way. Additionally, at first, everything seemed more important than meditating itself. He was thinking about all the other things he could do. It was like sitting down just to sit in silence was like, what am I doing? But eventually, as time went on, he noticed meditating centered him and allowed him to become more mindful of himself and of other and of what he wanted. Meditating eventually wasn't hard. What was hard is wanting to meditate. And he also talks about how he was able to become more conscious of what he was doing in the moment. He talks about the importance of being able to be present in what you're doing, for example, eating while eating or sleeping while sleeping, not necessarily always being multitasking, always working, just being able to be present in where he was and what he was doing. He points out that routine kills a man and that being creative is what saves him, which I was like, okay, I see that, but I know for a lot of people, routine is very important. He also referenced Star Wars, or Star Wars references meditation in a sense, because he talks about there is no try, there's always do. You either do or you don't do it. Like, you can't try. There's nothing in the middle, which I thought was kind of funny. And overall, like, I really did enjoy the little essay, but I did feel like towards the end, I was having trouble, like, finding there was a lot more simplistic terms, more of a simplistic mindset that I don't think everybody could fit into, which is kind of unfortunate. But I did enjoy this, especially towards the first half, about, the importance of silence and meditating and being mindful of yourself. At first, I also thought that it would be hard to read in Spanish because it's not like a language I typically speak. I mean, I do speak it, but I don't really read it. So I thought it'd be difficult to like understand, especially since this was like a little more of a philosophical book. But overall, I feel like I did understand most of the concepts and, kind of know where I was. I don't know, like, I didn't feel like I lagged, and you could probably see me at the first little bit. I was reading to myself out loud. It really helped, and I put on the audiobook to listen along with it, and that also kind of helped. But reading it on my own wasn't as hard as I thought it was, so kind of enjoyed that little bit. So yeah. Literally the joy of reading when it rains, and it's like the nice type of rain. It's not like the crazy one, but it feels like it's about to go crazy, but there's just enough thunder and it's nice. Alright, you guys, Biografía del Silencio all finished. It took me, it's 3:58, so technically 4. It took me, I would say, about maybe like 3.5 hours, 3 hours ish. I started around noon, 12:30, but I've taken a lot of breaks in between, so it did take me a while. But look at all the tabs that I got. This was like more of a philosophical book about Pablo and his experience in meditating, and it's kind of like a guide to what you should be focusing on when you meditate, and how you should be sitting in silence, and kind of like what it means to him and what it can mean to you. So I enjoyed the book. Like I said, I did tab it a lot, but the only thing is that like I felt like it got very simplistic at times, so I was like, okay bro, this is like nothing new. But at the same time, it's like kind of seemed more of a reflection of like himself and his experiences, so not too bad. I think I'm gonna wait for the rating because I don't really know what to rate it yet. And then next, I think I'll read like an audiobook. Okay, so I'm currently in the middle of The Near Witch by V.E. Schwab. Still, I started that book like a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, and it's not my favorite, I will say that. Unfortunately, it's just not quite my vibe because it's more fantasy mystery, and I always forget this going into like books that I should know that I won't like. I don't like reading historical books, and I don't like reading mystery. I don't like mystery. Mystery is like my least favorite genre. The moment there's like a mystery aspect in a book, I just like completely shut down and I just don't like the book anymore. I don't really know why, but it's just kind of how it's always been without me noticing until I noticed. I remember one time I picked up Nancy Drew and I was like, why is this literally the worst book I have ever read? Like, I've heard so many good things about Nancy Drew. Nancy Drew this, Nancy Drew that. It's a classic. Like, why don't I like it? It's literally a combination of historical and mystery, and I literally could not. But anyway, I want to finish The Near Witch by V.E. Schwab because I had mentioned it in my previous 24-hour reading vlog. Somebody in the comments under a video recommended to me and say this is like a good book to start out for a Victoria Schwab novel. So I was like, okay, go crazy, I guess. But I didn't know it was fantasy mystery at the time. But essentially, the book is said to be 284 pages. And I did the math because I'm 59% through, so that means that I should be on page 168. So 168 minus 284, that's the number of pages, right? 284. I have 116 pages left. So that's not too bad, I think. I hope I can finish that today, and low-key, I feel like that's a lot of pages, but my audio on Libby, it says that I'm set to finish in like 3 more hours. So maybe I'll finish that around 7. I need to cook some and clean some, and then I think I'll eat after that. And that should be taking up most of that time, if not all of it. And then if not, I can start copying these quotes into my notebook, which I've done during the oh no! See, this is the problem with these cheap journals, is that they kind of fall apart sometimes. So I essentially I write down the name of the book. I draw a little book because it is a book, and then I got it from my public library. The start date, and then I need to write in the finish date that I finished it today. And then I write all of the quotes. This is just literally a bunch of quotes. This little journal, I fill it up with quotes from the books I've read or am reading. The first one is, well, anyway, that's besides the point, literally. Sometimes I add notes, but with sticky notes. So that's the tea. Hopefully I'll finish The Near Witch tonight as well. Since I've already talked about The Near Witch in a previous video, I thought I'd talk about my lentils anyway. So I made lentils that night. It was just like trying to clear the fridge, and they were super mid. They actually weren't that good. The first time I made them were a lot better, but that little pot, the yellow pot, is actually so cute. Nobody knew who it was in my apartment, so everybody just like You know what, you can take it. So I took the yellow pot, and I love yellow, so it's perfect. And the lentils were mid, but you know what, that's fine. Okay, so great news. I finished The Near Witch, and I didn't even notice, well, I did notice, but I was like skeptical about it, but the Ash-born boy is also included in that library loan that I had. So I got to listen to the Ash-born boy as well as The Near Witch and got to add that to my page count, which is really, really nice. And I had to redo the math. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's like how I did the math. So in total, that was 204 pages. Not that you asked, but you know, I'm telling you how many pages I read for that. Was that 204? That was 204. Was it? I've tried doing this math before and then like finding my spot in an actual book. I am almost never able to like find where I'm at. So it's really, really frustrating. And I feel like the same thing happened here, but like it doesn't really matter. I'm just gonna pretend it's 204. That's like more than half of 345 though. I like always trip myself up with that. If you know how to math, you should let me know, but honestly, it doesn't really matter. Okay, back to my big list of books that I could possibly read. I'm thinking my next book will be You Must Take Part in Revolution by Badiucao and Melissa Chen. I don't think this is translated. One of them is the artist and another one is the actual author. I mean, not actual author, but like the person that wrote the story. They collaborated on this. I think I read that at the beginning. I started this a while ago and then I read a little bit. My dad picked it up for me because he visited me for a little bit. But yeah, I'm pretty excited to get started on it. And well, I started it. To continue it, I'll probably just restart it because I only read like 10 pages that night. But all I really know is that I think it takes place in China and that the government is very like overbearing and they don't really have their rights. Oh, from an Emmy-nominated journalist, Melissa Chen, and international activist artist, Badiucao, comes a near-future dystopian graphic novel about technology, authoritarian government, and the lengths that one will go to fight for the freedom. It's the fight for freedom. And so the whole premise is, it's 2035 and the US and China are at war. America is a pro-fascist state. Taiwan is divided into two. As conflict escalates between nuclear powers, three idealist youths who first meet in Hong Kong develop diverging beliefs about how best to navigate this techno-authoritarian landscape. Andy, Maggie, and Olivia travel different paths towards transformative change, each confronting to what extent they will fight for freedom and who they will become in doing so. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I started reading it. It was interesting at first, so yeah. I haven't read a graphic novel in forever too, so graphic novel, that's the tea. So last night I had a karaoke night with my friends, so if the quality of my voice is a little bit different, sorry for having fun, and I also think I might be getting sick. But anyway, You Must Take Part in Revolution is written by Melissa Chen and Badiucao. I think that's how you pronounce his name, but feel free to correct me. I listened to NPR's Book of the Day podcast that they had interviewed these two authors, Melissa Chen and Badiucao. I don't know, I got a new, different, interesting take on the book. Obviously I have my own thoughts, but I thought I would kind of summarize what I thought was really interesting about the podcast. But I totally recommend you listen to it. It's only like 7 minutes. Anyway, I learned that neither of these two people can return to China because of their critical work against China, which I thought was crazy. Melissa Chen got her, I think it's the Chinese journalist visa revoked, and I was like, that's actually insane. I didn't even know that could happen. And Badiucao can't return because of his satirical art against the Chinese president and against the critical lens that he makes his art towards the government. And I thought that was kind of sad, but anyway, so the idea of this book comes from Chan's collection of graphic novels, which includes Marvel and DC if you're into that, and the state of the world that was happening in the moment when they were going to write this book, this book is set from 2019 to 2035. So some of the events that happen in this book actually did occur. At the time, Trump had just lost the elections and there were protests in Hong Kong. And something I thought was really interesting is that Melissa Chen was really into Marvel and DC, like I had said. However, Marvel and DC kind of explore authoritarianism authoritarianism in like a fantasy world and a fantasy setting, but a lot of Americans and these authors may have never actually experienced authoritarianism, which I thought was so interesting. Honestly, I don't know why I have never thought about that, but I was like, she is so right. So she decides to bring her own experiences to the table. Badiucao's interests were more centered around the idea of resistance in the Hong Kong's protests, which makes sense because he is an activist. As for the messages that each of the authors had, something that I thought was really great is that each of them have different messages that they want to present to the reader. Melissa wants to show that protests don't get the same results as they used to about a decade ago, or at least a decade ago, and how citizens, quote, hold governments to account, and how citizens can also push for their government to become more democratic. And Badiucao has a bit of a different approach that I love. I have never really heard any author or anybody kind of describe it like this, and I tried getting like the actual recording of him saying this, but I don't know how to do it, so I'll just say it. He says, you know, artists is not really in the role to provide answers, but rather ask questions. I do hope that this story will reflect the direction of this world and be very blunt, particularly in the perspective of Chinese dissident artists that aren't just seeing the problem in Chinese government, but also seeing the decay in the West, particularly in America at this moment. And we need to grow up not relying on any certain force, but make our own choice and change by ourselves. So I thought that was really interesting and kind of like a fresh take that I've never really heard of, especially in the fact that like, oh, my message isn't really to give you an answer for you to have a takeaway, but more like for you to ask questions and be more critical in that sort of mindset, which I really loved. And I don't know, I wasn't really expecting that. Anyway, the podcast kind of talks about a couple more things, but I'm going to talk about some of the quotes that I pulled. For example, I thought this was, you know, I think this is true in the sense of like a lot of people. I thought I hated violence. What I finally realized was that I didn't hate it, I feared it. So you don't really hate violence, but you're scared that it comes to you, and I totally get that. And then aside from that, I do think that Melissa Chan kind of added her little bit in this where she says, but this isn't the Hunger Games. In the real world, activism needs to stay non-violent. We can't afford to adopt to the tools of our enemy, of violence, of fears, and fire. Especially because I think that like, you know, she grew up with these graphic novels and these stories, that maybe that's why hearing about these stories and applying them to the real world is a little bit different, separating reality from fiction. Lastly, I think that as an activist, Badiucao, and as a journalist, Melissa Chan, kind of have to like learn how to separate their, I don't know if they have to separate their life or if they actually have to give up their life for their cause, especially since they are so passionate for this. And in the novel, one of the characters is Andy, creates these like pigeon bombs essentially. So these pigeons are disguised as bombs and they go around and they literally bomb everything. So one of the characters asks him, feel weird feeding them knowing you're gonna turn them into fireballs? He says, all the time. But they're my best weapons. What choice do I have? To save people, I guess I have to give up some of my humanity. So I don't know if this like implies like, oh, I have to lose quite a bit of myself to be able to support the cause that I want, which I think is really sad. But I really do and did enjoy this book, and this ended up being just as long as the podcast anyway, so whatever. Okay, y'all, I just finished You Take Part of the Revolution, and I read this in like 2-ish hours, maybe a little less about. It's not too bad. It's not too thick. I bet you could read it faster if you wanted to, but I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. It's mostly set in like a future-ish world if nuclear war were to take place. So it kind of goes into those like themes about how you should be taking part in activism and kind of like the complexities of it. So I don't know. I thought it was pretty interesting. I think this is like a book that you kind of have to sit on for a little, because I literally just finished it and I'm like, I don't know. I thought it was pretty good. Like, I actually really liked the story. So you get 3 different characters, 3 different points of views. It was all really interesting to see them kind of grow in their own different ways and how their ideologies kind of change due to what they've been through, what they've lived through, and how they kind of like adapt their ideologies to fit their situations. Yeah, I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't know, but I actually really did like this one. So it's 9:15 right now. I think I might do like a little mini workout in my room, and I think I'm gonna read next. I don't know if I want to read Okay, here are my options, right, that I want to read right now, that I think I could finish tonight, so that way the page count could be easy to count. So I could read one of these short books. Two of them are the Spanish ones. One of them is a translated work by Haruki Murakami, after the Quake. And these two are by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And then I also have Uncanny by Junji Ito, which is another graphic novel. Or, no, actually, this is not a graphic novel. Oh, I thought it would be. Oh, this is interesting. Also, I guess this is just kind of like what his story is, but I don't think I'd be reading this one then. This is like how his writing process is and how he writes his manga. But I probably won't read that then because I thought it was the actual manga, but if not, 3 little short books. I'll see which one I pick later. So that's the tea. Yeah. I've been reading a lot, actually. I didn't expect myself to get through so many different books. I've gotten through, I don't know how many already. 4? Yeah, I mean, obviously some of those I had already started, but I'm still kind of surprised. Like, I have quite a bit of time. I think in the 3 hours left I have in the day, I could read more, and like, it doesn't have to be 3 more hours, but I think I could probably read another one of these short books. So yeah, we'll see.